some chili today. So in my pan I've got about a pound of ground beef that I'm going to brown up, and I've got a little less than half of a Spanish onion chopped up that we'll add as the beef starts to brown, and it'll be a good start to our chili. Okay, we've got the ground beef is almost done. I've got it broken up into smaller chunks. As it's cooking, we're going to add the chopped onion. We've also got some leftover bell pepper that we're going to add in as well. We don't measure anything, so that was a couple of small bell peppers. You add what you like, and we'll let that cook a few minutes, and I'm going to add some chopped up mushrooms. Okay, we've got that all cooking. I'm going to add a couple of teaspoons of some chopped up garlic. I'm cheating and use the jarred stuff. That works out to about 2 cloves. I'm going to add some chopped mushrooms. We like mushrooms, so I'm probably adding a cup and a half. That was about 5 or 6 small mushrooms chopped up. You can add whatever you like. If your ground beef is really lean, you may need to add a little oil to the bottom of your pot to keep it from sticking. We'll let that cook, and then we'll start adding liquid stuff. Okay, so now we've got stuff browned up. I've added about a tablespoon of chopped dried parsley, a teaspoon or maybe just a little less each of oregano and basil. I added about 2 tablespoons of chili powder and probably a little less than a teaspoon of cayenne, the ground red cayenne pepper. You can add as much as you like for however hot you like. I'm kind of like it about a medium. And we added one 28-ounce can of diced tomatoes with their juice, and we did another 28-ounce can full of our garden tomatoes that we've chopped up, and we'll just see what we've got for juice here as we continue to chop stuff up. And we'll Okay, so we've added about 2 cans and a half of diced tomatoes. One was a canned and the others were the rest of our leftover tomatoes. They're fresh. You can use whatever you like. I've added a total of 3 15-ounce thereabout cans of kidney beans, and we're going to add some tomato juice just to thin it down a little bit. If you like yours thicker, you can just leave it thick. But we like a little juice to ours, so I've used probably about half of a 46-ounce container of tomato juice there. So now we're gonna let it cook. I've also added a bay leaf to my spices and just a sprinkle of black pepper. We don't usually add salt to our cooking. There's some salt in the canned tomatoes, so we're gonna bring it up to a simmer, let it cook for a while, and give it a taste test and see if we need to adjust the spices. And what is chili without cornbread? So we're gonna make some cornbread in this cast iron skillet. I'm greasing it with a little bit of bacon grease. You can use vegetable oil or shortening or whatever you want. Or I don't know that I would use butter because that tends to burn a bit at high temperatures. So what we're gonna do is we're preheating the oven to 350. So we're gonna put this skillet in the oven and let that get hot while the oven preheats. Okay, for the cornbread itself, we've got just under a cup of sugar and 3/4 cup melted butter that I'm going to mix together. If you like your cornbread a little less sweet, you can cut down on the sugar. We're going to beat this pretty good, and then we're going to add 3 eggs. So we'll add the eggs one at a time. They incorporate better when they're added one at a time instead of trying to add all 3 of them at once. Now the recipe calls for adding a cup and a half of buttermilk. I don't have any buttermilk, but I do have buttermilk powder, so I'm going to use that. So to get a cup and a half, you add 6 tablespoons of the buttermilk powder, and then you put in your cup and a half of water to equal that. You can use plain milk instead, or you can put a tablespoon of vinegar or lemon juice in the bottom of your cup and add the milk to it and stir it and let it sit for a few minutes till it's soured, and that will work as well. But since I've got the buttermilk powder, we'll just use that. So we're going to slowly add the water. I'm going to add part of the water and kind of alternate it with some of the flour and stuff so that it's not too lumpy a batter. But I'm going to add in probably about a half cup of the water. Then we'll add in a teaspoon of baking soda, a teaspoon of salt, and a couple of teaspoons of baking powder. And then we'll slowly add in the cornmeal and the flour. So there's a teaspoon of salt. So we're going to add 2 cups of cornmeal. So I've added 2 cups of cornmeal. I'm going to add a little more of the water. I've got a little over a 1/4 cup of water left. Then I'm going to add 1 more cup of cornmeal, and I'm going to add a cup of flour. And as I add the flour, I will add in the rest of the water. So I only added a cup of water, so I got to add the other half cup of water yet. So now what we'll do is we'll get it ready and we'll pour it into our skillet that's still in the oven. So that skillet is very hot, and we're going to pour the batter in. And into the oven it goes. We're going to check it in about 25 minutes. Oven's at 350.
Dehydrating apples as well.
It's about ready to try and see how the spices are. See what it needs. I believe it's done. 25 minutes. So I added about another teaspoon of chili powder and just a sprinkling more of basil and oregano, so that probably comes up to about a teaspoon each of them. And we'll let that cook for a few more minutes. It's just not quite there yet, but it's close.